My name is Amanda. Standing in the hallway, I stared into the eyes of my father, Dr. Henry, a once powerful figure in the medical and social circles. His face was contorted with rage, his tuxedo rumpled, and his eyes wild. He grabbed my wrist tightly, his fingers digging into my skin. "You think you can walk away after humiliating me in front of everyone?" he roared, his voice echoing off the cold concrete walls. I looked at him with cold detachment, my heart as steady as a rock. "Let go," I said firmly. He hissed, "Or what? You ungrateful brat. I gave you life, and this is how you repay me." It all started years ago. I grew up in a wealthy family, but my father, a well-known plastic surgeon, was a man of arrogance and control. When I was young, I showed an interest in social work, wanting to help the less fortunate. But my father saw it as a waste of his good genes. 10 years ago, when I received an acceptance letter to the state's top social work program, he was furious. In his study, he took the letter from my hands, crumpled it, and threw it into the fireplace. "You want to be a nobody cleaning up society's mess? Fine, but don't expect any support from me. You're dead to me," he sneered. From that moment on, I was determined to prove myself. While he was busy building his empire of cosmetic surgeries and vanity projects, I worked double shifts at low-paying jobs. I put myself through night school, living on instant noodles and my burning desire for success. Eventually, I earned my master's in public administration and climbed the ranks from a caseworker to a district manager, and finally, I became a senior program officer for the state health fund. 6 months ago, my father's application for a $25 million grant landed on my desk. I saw the inflated numbers, the shell companies listed as contractors, and the blatant misuse of funds. I could have easily rejected it with a simple email, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. I wanted him to face the full consequences of his actions. So I waited. I approved the preliminary rounds, letting him believe he had won. He booked a grand hotel, ordered the most expensive lobster and vintage wine, and invited all the important people in the city to his gala. He was building his own downfall. At the gala, he took the microphone and introduced me in the most humiliating way. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet my daughter. A complete waste. She crawls in the dirt instead of carrying on my legacy." The guests laughed, thinking it was a joke. But I had a wireless microphone in my sleeve, and I was ready to turn this $25 million gala into a federal crime scene. I stepped out of the shadows, my heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. The room fell silent as I walked up to the stage. My father looked at me, expecting a tantrum or a plea for respect. But I reached out and took the microphone from his hand. "My father is right about one thing. I do work with the state's most vulnerable." But he left out my job title. I said calmly, "I'm the senior program officer for the state health fund, and I have the power to veto this $25 million grant he's been begging for since January." The room froze. My father's face turned ashen, and he dropped his glass of wine. I opened the folder under my arm and started to expose his financial mismanagement. 80% of the budget is for luxury upgrades, like Italian leather furniture and marble floors, while not a cent is for patient beds. And $300,000 for 2 luxury SUVs for a non-profit for the homeless. I formally rejected his application, dropped the microphone, and walked off the stage. I could feel the shock of the crowd, and for the first time in my life, I was in the spotlight. As I walked through the service doors, I thought the worst was over. But then, my father came after me. He grabbed my wrist, threatening me. He thought he could still control me, using my grandmother as leverage. He said, "You think you're smart? I'll stop paying for your grandmother's nursing home. She'll be on the street tonight." I didn't flinch. I took out my phone and showed him photos of the gala's catering invoice, wine list, and consulting fees paid to a shell company in his name. "You're going to prison, Dad. You've committed tax fraud and embezzlement." He stammered. "You wouldn't." But I had already uploaded all the evidence to a secure server shared with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. And when he threatened to stop paying for my grandmother, I told him I had moved her to a new nursing home, paid for a year in advance. His face collapsed. He slid to the floor, begging. I showed him an active call with a special agent who had been listening for the last 3 minutes. The fight was over. As federal agents closed in, I walked out of the building. I got into my car and called my grandmother. "It's done," I said. "And him," she whispered. "He can't hurt us anymore." For the first time in my life, the constant noise of his criticism in my head was gone. It wasn't pure joy. It was more like the relief after removing a long, festering wound. As I drove away, I didn't look back. People like him think power makes them untouchable, but the truth always catches up. Sometimes, being overlooked is the greatest advantage.